You've been told to wear sunscreen your whole life, but do you actually know what it's protecting you from and whether what you're using is actually working? Because the answer is far more complicated than the label suggests. The sun quietly damages your skin every day, even when it's cloudy, even in winter, even inside your car. This damage shows up in a few different ways. First, photoaging, early wrinkles, loss of skin texture, declining elasticity. These aren't just signs of getting older, they're signs of unprotected sun exposure. Second, hyperpigmentation, dark spots, melasma, uneven skin tone. And third, the most serious, skin cancer. 1 in 5 people will develop skin cancer at some point in their lives. And the vast majority of these cases are linked to unprotected UV exposure. The good news, most of this damage is preventable. Everything in this video is based on the most current peer-reviewed literature. References for this video are listed in the description below. We're covering what UV radiation and visible light actually do to your skin, why SPF doesn't tell the whole story, the difference between chemical and mineral filters and which one is right for you, why tinted sunscreen is not just a cosmetic choice, and the mistakes almost everyone makes when applying sunscreen. By the end, you'll know exactly what to look for and what to stop ignoring. What does the SPF number on your sunscreen actually mean? Most people assume the higher the better, but that's only part of the story. The sun sends different types of radiation toward your skin, the most well-known being UVB, UVA, and visible light. Each damages your skin differently. UVB, between 290 and 320 nanometers, affects the surface of the skin. It's the primary cause of sunburn, pigmentation, and direct DNA damage, the main trigger for skin cancer. UVA penetrates much deeper, in the 320 to 400 nanometer range, reaching the dermis and even the hypodermis. Pigmentation, photoaging, and DNA damage through free radicals, these are UVA's signature, and the vast majority of UV radiation that reaches the Earth's surface is UVA. One more thing, UVA passes through glass and through clouds. Inside your car, at your desk, by a window, outside on an overcast day, UVA is there. In winter, it even reflects off snow, becoming more intense. UVB is much easier to block. Glass is enough, clouds are enough. That's why sunburn is a summer phenomenon. But photoaging and pigmentation disorders, those continue 365 days a year. Sunscreen isn't just for the beach, and it isn't just for summer. UVB exposure peaks between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. UVA operates in a much wider window, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's a lesser-known threat, visible light, particularly high-energy visible light in the blue-violet spectrum, 400 to 490 nanometers. Even 15 to 30 minutes of sun exposure can deliver enough visible light to trigger pigmentation. And this pigmentation behaves differently from UV-induced damage. It can persist for 10 to 22 days, penetrating deeper into the skin. In darker skin tones, the effect is significantly more pronounced. In lighter skin tones, it can cause redness. Standard sunscreens offer almost no protection against this. So what actually blocks visible light? Tinted sunscreens. Specifically, formulations containing iron oxides, the ingredients that give tinted sunscreens their color. This isn't a cosmetic feature, it's a clinical one. If you have melasma, hyperpigmentation, or darker skin, an untinted sunscreen, however high its SPF, is leaving part of your skin unprotected every single day. One more thing worth clarifying, screen exposure from phones and computers is often cited as a concern. Current evidence suggests that everyday screen exposure is 100 to 1000 times weaker than solar radiation, not enough to trigger pigmentation on its own. Sunlight remains the primary concern, and standard window glass provides no protection against visible light. Inside your car, your office, your home, blue light still gets through. For those with visible light-sensitive skin conditions, this matters. So, what exactly does SPF measure? Primarily protection against UVB. SPF 30 blocks around 97% of UVB rays. SPF 50 blocks around 98%. But how do you know if your sunscreen protects against UVA? In the US, the term broad spectrum is regulated by the FDA. To carry this label, a product must provide protection up to 370 nanometers of the UVA spectrum. In Japan, the PA system using plus signs to indicate UVA protection strength. PA plus is the lowest, PA plus the highest. In Europe, UVA protection must be at least 1/3 of the labeled SPF, a more demanding standard. Practical recommendation: choose a broad spectrum sunscreen. When possible, look for a product with a PA+++ rating or the UVA circle symbol on the packaging. These are the most reliable indicators that UVA protection is actually sufficient. There are two main types of sunscreen filters, chemical and mineral. Mineral filters, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, work by absorbing, reflecting, and scattering light. They provide broad spectrum coverage, UVB, UVA, and partial visible light protection. In their larger particle forms, however, they leave a white cast on the skin, particularly noticeable on darker skin tones. Chemical filters work by absorbing UV radiation and converting it to heat. Most target UVB primarily. Broad-spectrum sunscreens are typically formulated by combining multiple filters with different UV absorption spectra to achieve wider coverage. Chemical filters also tend to be easier to apply and don't leave a white cast on the skin. Some chemical filters are controversial from a safety and environmental perspective. The FDA acknowledged in 2019 that these filters can be absorbed into the bloodstream. But absorption and harm are not the same thing. No clinically significant health risk from daily use has been proven to date. Research is ongoing. This is why mineral filters are preferred for children, pregnant women, and sensitive skin. Lower absorption, lower allergen potential. Human studies on chemical filters during pregnancy are limited, so mineral options are recommended out of caution. Which is better, mineral or chemical? There's no definitive answer. They work through different mechanisms, cover different ranges. What matters most is using sunscreen consistently and in sufficient quantity. For children, the best protection is shade combined with lightweight long-sleeved clothing, pants, a wide-brimmed hat, and sunglasses. Sunscreen use should be avoided in babies under 6 months. For children between 6 months and 2 years, mineral filter sunscreens are suggested. The American Academy of Dermatology recommends a broad spectrum SPF 30 or higher sunscreen, but no sunscreen protects you completely. Here's what else matters. Sun protection is most critical between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monitor the UV index. At 8 and above, avoid unnecessary outdoor exposure. If your shadow is shorter than you are, UV levels are high. If you're outdoors, seek shade whenever possible. Wear protective clothing, lightweight long sleeves, pants, a wide-brimmed hat, UV protective sunglasses. Choose clothing with a UPF rating when possible. Avoid tanning beds, UV radiation from tanning beds is classified in the same category as solar radiation, carcinogenic. There is no such thing as a safe tan. Be extra careful near water, snow, and sand. These surfaces reflect UV rays and increase your risk of burning. And regardless of whether you work indoors, add sunscreen to your morning routine every day of the year. How much sunscreen and how often? Most people apply 20 to 50% less sunscreen than needed to achieve the SPF value on the label. To reach effective protection, 2 milligrams per square centimeter of skin is required. For the face and neck, at least 1 teaspoon or use the 2-finger rule, enough to cover the length of your index and middle fingers. Apply to all exposed skin, ears, neck, tops of feet. Apply to dry skin 15 minutes before going outside. Reapply after swimming or sweating. Sunscreen seems like a simple habit, but the science behind it is deeper than most people realize. SPF alone isn't enough. UVA protection is a separate consideration. Visible light is a gap most sunscreens leave open, and how much you apply and when you reapply, all of it directly affects how well you're protected. But don't let the complexity overwhelm you. In practice, what you need to do is clear. Broad spectrum, SPF 30 or higher, enough of it, every day. Reapply. If you have hyperpigmentation or darker skin, a tinted formulation. For children and pregnant women, mineral filters. And alongside sunscreen, shade, a hat, protective clothing, still the most fundamental and most evidence-based protection available. Skin cancer is one of the most common cancers. It's also one of the most preventable. Use this knowledge.